the ecosystem for engineers is wild. There's new tooling, new whiz-bang technology that people are bringing to bear on their projects daily, weekly. Some of it's proprietary and sold. Some of it's open sourced and accessible and sort of free to all. Check the license to make sure that you can actually use it. But it's a wild world out there, right? That your developers are working in, and so I think don't be intimidated by that. I think the key is again, be flexible, be willing to be uncomfortable, approach with a growth mindset, and don't be intimidated. So. Just to give you like a short list of some really core like backbone engineering platforms that people use are sort of the Atlassian suite. So I've got Jira and Confluence up there. I mean, a lot of development work occurs in that set of platforms and tools that's provided by Atlassian. So you're gonna likely work in and see information mapped and stored and housed in Confluence, sort of a wiki tool where engineers will oftentimes describe the project they're working on, keep running lists of notes of meetings that they've had, ways that they've tried to explore solving the problem. That can be a very rich place to go search. So if you're scratching your head, trying to figure out where to start on a project, if you have access to their Confluence, poke around on their wikis. You'll probably learn a whole bunch of information. Jira is another Atlassian project management tool that is kind of a way to shove tickets back and forth, frankly, among engineers. So you work on this aspect of the project, we'll track the work, we'll close out the ticket when it's done. That's kind of the basic, capability of Jira. And I think it's really important to know and understand how Jira works, because you may need to hover into that, sort of helicopter into that platform from time to time. FOSSA, for example, has a Jira integration. So if you are doing a license review on some open source project or code base, and your policy triggers a problem that FOSSA helps you understand, you can actually fire a ticket to the team that owns that part of the code base and kind of work with them directly in a tool that they understand to go solve that problem and clear out the problem. So that's Jira. Slack, I'm sure hopefully everybody has some experience with Slack. Love it, hate it. I think it's here to stay. But it's, communication platform heavily adopted by engineers. I would say there's lots of projects and things similar to Confluence. There's lots of really interesting use cases in Slack where I've seen teams really use it like a wiki and use it like a Confluence. So there's a huge sort of knowledge base that gets developed in Slack that you can go tap, and you'd be surprised what you find out there. GitHub is a source code repository and sort of developer toolkit system and service that it's pretty straightforward to kind of get oriented to GitHub. There's a lot. They actually have published a lot of great information. So if you just go poke around on that website, and if you have any experience with open source at all, keep a stiff upper lip and understand GitHub. And then Kubernetes, I put this one on here because this is me trying to be vulnerable a little bit and tell you that, there's a story about to Kubernetes and the Googling being your best friend. The very first time I heard what Kubernetes is or was, it's an open source system for automating deployment and management of containerized applications. So it's an infrastructure, tool, basically, or development resource that back-end engineers love. The very first time I heard it, I didn't have any clue what it was. And I was sitting in a meeting. This is back when we were all still in person. I was in a conference room, and I was looking at my computer and trying to make sure that no one was seeing that I was Googling what the heck Kubernetes was. And at the time, I still didn't really understand it after reading the article, but I knew enough bits and pieces that, just in that Google session, I was able to kind of start asking some some other questions. And by the end of the meeting, I think I had a pretty good grip on at least what it was conceptually. And so I think like that's just a way to say, hey, like even people, and at that point I had been supporting that engineering team for probably 2 years. So, you know, even when you feel like you're an expert in learning, there's always something new. So don't be afraid to kind of, just go to Google and use it as a resource. It can be your best friend sometimes.